Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting session of ABAP Cat Day of Devtoberfest 2024. Before we start with the session, let me remind you about the Devtoberfest page in the SAP community to know more about various activities to gain points. Check it out to win points for the grand prize, which is a retreat at an SAP TechEd Roadshow stop in 2025. The session is about major updates for embedded analytics in ABAP Cloud, presented by Andreas Fried, Olivia Bowman, and Stefan Onbrek. Welcome, Andreas, Olivia, and Stefan to Devtoberfest. And now over to you.
Thank you, Sheena. So my name is Andreas Riel. I am product owner in the SAP platform, ABAP platform. And with me today are Olivia Baumann from UA and Stefan Onnebrink from BW. And together we will give you an update on embedded analytics in ABAP Cloud. Let's dive right into it. And before we start, I will give you an overview on what we are doing today and what you can expect. So first of all, I will give you an update. So what is embedded analytics in ABAP Cloud at all? How do embedded analytics and ABAP Cloud relate? Then we want to develop an analytical application together. The application is about analyzing the utilization of flights, and to do that, we are using the famous SAP flight data model, and Olivia will show us the development objects and the artifacts and the old process, more or less. And then we will also have an update on the development process because we invented something new. Olivia will also show you the new development process. And after we did that, we will sum it up and give an outlook on what is next in embedded analytics, so how embedded analytics will evolve over time. And we will also give you options to dive deeper into the topic and give you links to learning sessions and so on. And once we've done that, we are ready for your questions and we'll answer questions live. You can also post your questions in the chat, and Stefan will in the meantime also in parallel answer questions. But we will have hopefully time also for live questions in the end. Okay, then let's get started and talk about embedded analytics in ABAP Cloud. So you probably know this picture very well. You have seen it because it gives you the architecture of ABAP Cloud overview about the components. And we will now set into relation embedded analytics to it. Let's get started. First of all, we have, of course, SAP HANA, the database. And SAP HANA is very important for embedded analytics in the ABAP Cloud because it's not only an in-memory, fast in-memory database, but it also has a column store and a row store. And the row store is important for the transactional world, and the column store is very important for the analytical world because in the analytical world, we want to aggregate across a lot of data sets along a column. And therefore, this column store is really important. Okay, then what else do we have? We have the CDS development objects. So in our analytical data model, we can consume CDS just as well as you would do it in the transactional world. So you have this probably known to the VDM CDS views that are released by SAP and that can be used for transactional programming, but we can also use them here in analytics and build our analytics model on top of them so that in the end we can use the same, not only the same data model, but of course also the same live data to do analytics upon as we see it in the transactional world. So it's live data. Then we have the development tools. So we're using ADT just as the the RAP developers do as well. Just to mention it, we have analytical key user tools as well to build an analytical data model and analytical applications, but I don't want to mention them today. There may be additional sessions for that in future. Okay. Then we have the model that we build ourselves. So the analytical data model, the analytical data provider, is written in CDS as well. So we are using CDS entities, so the most modern CDS, just as well as in the transactional world. So when you want to program for analytics, you don't have to learn a lot of new things. It's just more or less the same than in the transactional world. Then we have slight differences now. We are using, to expose the analytical model, service definition and binding. That's the same as in the transactional world, but we are not exposing in our data service. Well, we can also expose in our data service and work with the analytical smart business apps, but we want to use here real multi-dimensional analytics. And to do this, we need the ENA service, the ENA service protocol, because this is specific for really multi-dimensional applications, and it's much better for aggregating, for example. Okay, and then of course we have the clients. Right now out there we have SAP Analytics Cloud. I have to say this is not part of ABAP Cloud, so it's a separate system next to ABAP Cloud, but you can use it to consume an analytical service that you built in ABAP Cloud. And now what we have new is that we can also build Fiori UIs that are on stack in our ABAP Cloud system, and you can use those to consume our analytical service. Well, then let's have a look at the development artifacts in more detail. What you can see here, the blue stuff is the analytical star schema. Oops, that was too quick. The analytical star schema consists of cubes, dimensions, also hierarchy views and text views. The cube is in the center, and the cube, so to say, the heart of the analytical model, it draws together all the data that we want to analyze, and also the data that we want to analyze by. And the dimensions give additional attributes. Dimensions are more or less metadata. Dimension views are often delivered by SAP, and you can use them, and they typically read directly from a table, whereas our cube view may be more complex. It may draw together data from different tables, from different views. It can be based on a fact, on a table, but also on a RAP business object. Then we have the query. The query is very close to the UI. You can have an idea of like a pivot table that the query reflects, and the query queries the cube view. The query is also what we then expose in a service definition and service binding, and then wrap all together in an IAM app, and the IAM app is then assigned to the end user. Okay, let's have a look a little bit in more detail and a little bit more specific to our use case. Like I said, we want to use the flight model to analyze the occupation rate. Now let's have a look at the cube view in our case. So the cube is consisting of dimensions and measures. The dimensions are the attributes that we want to analyze our data by, and the measures are the numerical data that we want to analyze. For example, in our case, we said we want to have a look at the occupation rate. Therefore, one of the measures would be the occupied seats. Okay, so you may be a little bit confused because I said the cube contains dimensions. Like you see here, the cube contains IDs of the dimensions. And then we have these dimension views that are connected to it, for example, like the airport. And those contain then additional attributes like the name of the airport, country, and so on, that we also want to see in our query later on. Then we have additional elements like hierarchy views or text views. Hierarchy views would be connected to the dimension as well and would have the ability then to display the dimension in a hierarchical way. For example, to have a view on the airport by country or by alphabet. And the text views would give the option, for example, to have the name of the airport in different languages. But we won't have a look at them today, just to mention them. Now, the important query. So like I said, the query queries the cube view, and it is like a pivot table. And there you see it's aligned in rows and columns. And typically in the columns, we have the measures, and the rows, we have the dimensions. You can align it in a different way, like in a pivot table, but this is the default layout. Okay, I think we had enough slides now and enough talking on slides. And I would suggest I hand over to Olivia, and Olivia shows us really in ADT how the model looks like.
Hello everyone, I'm Olivia and I'm a user assistance developer and I'm working for the documentation, or I'm responsible for the documentation for embedded analytics. So now I will start. First of all, the flight cube. Here you can see the data category is cube and it's a view entity and you have different associations that point to the dimensions. Then we have 3 key fields like the airline ID, the connection ID and the flight date, and the other fields are non-key fields. And then, of course, as Andreas said, we have measures like the maximum seats, the occupied seats, and so on. So then I will go on to the dimensions. Its data category is dimensions. Its representative key is the airport ID. And here you can see as a key field is also airport ID, and the others like country and city are foreign key fields. Then I have the query. It's close to the UI, and there the axis shows rows, but it can also be columns, or it can be free, so you can select a column or row. Yes, then we have the service binding, which is shown here, and the service definition, which is very straightforward with provider contracts inner and exposed Sedana flight query. And last but not least, we have the flight cube. And here in the services, you can see that it's an inner binding. So I will go on now with the data preview of the query. Okay. So now you can see this pivot chart, and I will put on a filter for the flight year. I put on 2024, and I will put another filter on the departure airport. There I will put the John F. Kennedy International Airport. And now you can see the chart is a bit more simple. And now here you can see the different rows and columns. I will delete the utilization in this case. And you can also define the default decimal places, for example, 2, but in this case I will take 0. And in the end, I can show you a chart. Here you can see from Lufthansa and American Airlines the different columns and rows that I showed you, and here in the chart. Yes, now we'll go back to Andreas.
Okay, thank you very much, Olivia. Let's go back to our presentation. Now we've seen the objects and the query preview, and we've also seen that the preview query is pretty mighty already and looks already like an analytical client application. Speaking of client applications, so you may have asked yourself now, why are we doing all this? of course, we want to have UIs where we consume this service in the end. And like we mentioned before, one of the prominent ones is SAP Analytics Cloud. But what we want to focus on today is the on-stack, the embedded analytics feature, which would then be a multi-dimensional analysis Fiori application that we want to build. Just to mention, there are also additional other clients like the review booklet Fiori application or even analysis for Office that can consume the same model as well. But I guess the most prominent ones are still SAP Analytics Cloud then, and hopefully in future, the multi-dimensional analysis Fiori UI in future, because it's just came out. So yeah, okay. And you have seen that the development objects that we looked at are the most brain is, so to say, in the star schema. So you have to put your energy in defining the cube and the dimensions and maybe the query, but then exposing it is very straightforward. The service definition just references the query, service binding just references the service definition, and the IAM app wraps all together, more or less. What we haven't talked about yet is the app itself, but you've seen in the preview that we are very, very close already to an analytical application. Typically, you would go into Business Application Studio and build your application. But what we decided now for this MDA app is that we can even generate this one. And the idea is now that we start on the cube and start a generator that generates like a default query, service definition, service binding, but also really the Fiori application and the IAM app, all in just a few clicks, and that you as a developer really can focus on the elements here where your brain is needed the most. And I would suggest again that I hand over to Olivia, and she will again show you now this new development process.
So I will continue. So here we in this package, it's for my demo version, so I was looking for it. So here we have the flight cube, and then we click on generate ABAP repository objects, and then we put a multi-dimensional analytics app. Then we put in the package. Put on next. And here it's already created the service definition, the service binding, the app descriptor, the app variant, and a title. And I will put my subtitle. First flights. And I put in semantic objects. I put on flight air 24. Oh, I have type. And analyze air 24. And later on, we will see in the app that there will be an icon. So I put an SAP icon. Therefore, we have an icon library, and you can search for different icons. So
one thing, Olivia, could you maybe change the title so that we can realize it later on in the analytics UI, in the Fiori UI?
I will call it Devtoberfest. Okay.
Great, thank you.
So we go on next. And here we can see the things that will be created. And we go on next, and we go on finish. So it will take a bit of time. So now all the artifacts will be created. And now Andreas will go on.
Okay, thanks a lot, Olivia. So let's take a look at what has been created if we know all that. So first of all, we have the query that has been generated. You can see this is quite basic. Then you can see the service definition and the service binding like we're used to. And you can even see here a Fiori UI has been created. And finally, our IAM app. Let's open the IAM app. And in the IAM app, we can first of all see that the generated Fiori UI is linked, and the ENA service that we created is also linked. And now as a developer, you would take this application. So this is, well, quite simple now, but it's still an end-to-end running application. And you can immediately assign this application to a business catalog, which can be assigned to an end user. I would say let's do that. For the case of simplicity, I am using a business catalog that is existing and is assigned to a user already. This one. And okay. Next. Oh. Not sure why this is not working. One more try. Okay. Finish. So this time it worked. As we have changed now that business catalog, we have to go to the business catalog. And where is it? That's one. And we have to publish it locally because we changed it so that it will be updated. Okay, so this now generates all the Fiori artifacts in the background and should also update the Fiori application cache. So this takes some seconds, and afterwards we can already go in the Fiori UI and check if the app is available now for our end user. Let's just give it a refresh, see if everything worked. Looks good. Now let's go to the Fiori UI. Okay, and edit the page. Now we can add a tile and select our business catalog that we used before. This is this one. And how did we call it, Olivia? Devtoberfest. Oh, it's not there yet. Let's give it a refresh. Devtoberfest, there it is. My first flight's Devtoberfest. Add that plus icon, so now we have it here in the Fiori Launchpad. There it is. And we can launch the application. Okay, this application looks very boring. The reason is, of course, that it uses the query that was generated, which is still not ideal, of course. Now I would say we go into that query and adapt the query to our needs. Okay, we said we wanted to build an analytical application. Give me a second. That analyzes the flight occupation. And I would do that for a separate year. You've seen that Olivia in the UI added a filter to it that filters on the year. And I don't want to do this in the UI, but I just want to do it here already in the query. And therefore, I'm adding a parameter to my query. And I'm binding it here in a where condition on the flight year. Okay. And then we said we want to analyze the occupation rate. To calculate the occupation rate, we do not only need the maximum seats, but we also need the occupied seats. And we need a calculation. I also prepared this calculation. Okay. Now we have a calculation. You see that whenever you have a calculation, you have to set the aggregation default formula. We have given it a label, so that's readable a little bit better. And we have given it already a unit of measure. And this unit of measure is also something new. We defined here our own unit of measure, and we're using it, percent, here in our calculated formula. Okay, what else do we want to do? I think when Olivia did this, we did also have additional dimensions. So let's take the airline ID as well. And the flight, yeah, okay, that should be sufficient. And the airline ID. Let's say we want to have the airline ID on the free axis and not show the totals. Hide the totals. Okay. Now the expectation is that our analytical application that we have built before just reflects what we did here in the query. Let's go back and start the application again. Oh, that's not so nice. Okay. Just a small hiccup. And now you see the application has changed, and we have here the input option for the variable. And as we have given it the SAP calendar year, therefore we can also use the features of the calendar year already, have a variable help, have a description automatically, and can select the year 2024. And now the good thing is that we have a query, a real Fiori application is that we can define now the views on it, and we can say that we want to have an own view where we define the variable already, like we did here, 2024, set that as default, and even make it public so that the fellow colleagues can make use of it as well. Let's call that occupation rate 2024. Save it. Didn't quite work. Save. Okay, and when you now start the application again, 2024 is pre-filled like we wanted it to be. And the real great thing is that you can, in this view, not only include like parameters here, but you could even have your own calculation and also share that with your colleagues. So this is really close to now end user extensibility, what we have here already. For example, let's calculate the free capacity. And maximum capacity minus occupied seats. Okay, and you see this is working already. Okay, that's it. So we have learned now that it's very easy to create a full-fledged analytical application from an existing cube already with just a few clicks with that new MDA generation wizard. Okay, and now let's have a look at what is coming in future in embedded analytics. So this generator that we've just seen is just one, the start of it. So we will have probably additional generators coming in the next releases. For example, we have seen that review booklets we mentioned before. Of course, there should also be the option for a developer to create review booklets. So we will include a similar generator for review booklet applications in the end. Review booklets are analytical applications where you can add multiple queries into it and compare them. We are also thinking about putting AI into the game and have something like a generator that gives you a more intelligent query already. So we've seen here now that the generated query was very cumbersome and you had to enhance it manually. So we could also think about having an AI-supported generator that you can ask, please add an analytical application for me that calculates the occupation rate of the flights, and it would create a more sophisticated query already. Sorry. Then probably we will have also a generator for the hierarchies. We haven't touched the hierarchies yet so far too deep, but as a developer, you would also need to create multiple artifacts to create such a hierarchy, and therefore it will also make sense to have a wizard for that. But we do not only want to invest in wizard, but also in the classical application development with the Business Application Studio. Right now, we do not have too much analytics capabilities out there, but we are currently investing in an analytical floor plan and analytical building blocks there, so that you can, in the end, maybe then also do a combination of transactional and analytical data in one app, and have one application that really does both, where you can have maybe a small dashboard in a transactional application. Coming up also somewhere in the future is that we want to have the smart business controls that you know from S4 and from the key user world, also in the developer world. Okay, that's about it. I think the slides will be linked in the YouTube later on, and there you will also have the links, and you can click here and have for example, our GitHub hands-on, where you can build your own analytical application in a trial system. You can play with that. You can continue reading in SAP Help, and we have lots of tutorials out there already for analytics that you may want to have a look at if you want to dive deeper into that analytics topic. Okay. I think that's about it from our side. Then we would be open to the question and answer section. stop sharing. And Stefan.
Thank you for the great session, Andreas and Olivia and Stefan. To the participants, we have close to 10 minutes for any question and answers you would like to hear from the team. So please post the questions in the chat, and if you would like to post the questions later, you can post it in the comments, or you can even post them in the events page of SAP community. I think there are a couple of questions, and Stefan, you have answered them, right?
Yeah. Maybe one to Andreas. There was a question if we upload this flight scenario into GitHub. Can you spend some words on that?
Yes, I mean, the flight scenario is already out there in GitHub. What is not in GitHub, what is missing in GitHub is the analytical parts of it. So the dimensions, the cube, the query. And Stefan has put a lot of effort in defining really content that could be put out on GitHub. But I think we have to review it, Stefan, and then I think we can also provide that on GitHub in the future. So stay tuned, and I think we can mention it maybe also here in the video. And in the other GitHub repository that I have mentioned, where that is linked in the slides, we can also link it there then. Yeah, and I guess when we do so, we'll probably also bring out a blog post on it.
Yeah, there is another question about the review booklet. Will that be on premise? And so far as I'm informed, yes, but I can't tell you the release, so I'm not allowed to tell you something what is in the future releases. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I think same for me. Review booklets are planned to be available in on-premise as well, so that's for sure. And I think we can also mention that the plan is that it will be really in the next coming on-premise release. But of course, this is not not binding here in this case. But I think this is planned, and that's only the review booklets that will be available in S4. Speaking about the review booklets for the developer, this will probably take a little bit longer. So there we are just working on a prototype right now.
So I can't see any further questions. So it seems to be that you had a clear talk. No questions.
Well, if you have questions later on, I think you can even come back to this video and post your questions there, even if the video is over, right, Sheena? And
yes, they can always come back and post the questions as comments, and they can also post the questions in the events page of the community, and we can provide answers to them. Okay, so if we don't have any further questions, I thank you, Andreas, Olivia, and Stefan for this great session. And the slide decks that were used today and the validation tutorials will be updated by the end of the day and will be available in the description box of this video. And don't forget to check it out and gain points for the grand prize. So thanks everyone for attending this session, and stay tuned for more. Take care and bye.
thank you, Sheena, and thank you everybody who listened to us. Bye-bye.